Welcome to the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you, and if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Well, Dave, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
Today is my favorite day here with David Towner and Sam McKeown. We left off last time talking about communication, as our producer Alex reminded us today.
Yeah, we kind of got off on a little tangent there.
A little bit. So
it's okay. So we're basically, what we mean by communication is that all of us are pretty bad communicators. Right. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what we are. We don't listen very well, and a lot of times we don't get the words out that we want to get out, right? And so we're going to focus on two verses. This is James 1:19, to be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to become angry. And then there was another one, Proverbs 18:13 says, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame. And that is a problem. I was just telling Sam, we were in a meeting, this is probably half a year ago, where we were at a Cracker Barrel. Yep. And the four of us were there. There was four pastors there. And all of us were cutting each other off, not in meanness or anything. It's just like, I got this to say. Right. And if we did that with our wives, it would be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't want to do that with each other also. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about communicating in what you call active listening.
Active listening. You know, and everybody thinks they listen. We talk to one another.
No. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, not too many people admit that they don't listen. But we talked last week at the end of it that usually in a conversation, 17 seconds in, you're ready to answer, whether you know what the question is or not. But 17 seconds, you have lost interest in the conversation, and now you're thinking about what your answer is, or you're drifting off into Never Never Land and don't even hear the rest of the conversation. So
I don't remember what you just said.
Yes, no, exactly. But there's some things we can do when you're talking. Like Dave and I both like to talk. We just do. We have that type of personality. But when you're talking to somebody like that, you're somebody like me or talking to Dave, and we pause, that's when you need to be ready to clarify what was just said.
Yeah, an old counselor of mine said, it's called paraphrasing.
Yes.
Tanya and I, when we were first married, our first 6 years were rough. 6 months were rough. We weren't communicating very well. I thought I was a great communicator, but I was horrible. She thought she was a good communicator, and she wasn't. You would call her more the isolator or kind of shut down, and I'd be the one trying to fix everything. Right. So that never works. The counselor said, if we just paraphrase, if we, like you said, paraphrase back to you, you were saying that we only listen actively for about 17 seconds, which is amazing to me. And after 17 seconds, we're already kind of zoning out, or you and I just talked about it before we went on, or we're already before the 17 seconds coming up with our own plan of attack or plan of addressing whatever they're saying. Right. So we're not even hearing it.
Right. And so many folks think that people who can speak from the stage, that they can reach out and they touch people with their words and everything else, are great communicators. Well, they might be great speakers, but they're not connecting. Yeah. They can connect with an audience for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on, but much after that, the connection's lost. And then they don't really connect with the people because the people go away. That's one thing about seminars and rah-rah meetings and stuff like that. I'm not big on them. I prefer the workshop style. But that's why the excitement only lasts for a couple days.
Sure. Well, and what we're saying here is that you could speak in front of people, and that's relatively easy for those who have a bigger personality. It's the real challenge of communication is the one-on-one, right? Yeah. It's the sitting down and talking. You do a lot of coaching people. For me, I have to always go back to the people come in my office, or listening to whomever it is in our church. Or in the community. I was with a bunch of pastors here today and listened to some guys that were going through some difficult stuff at a big prayer meeting we had. But my biggest challenge has always been, how do I listen to my wife well enough to not try to come up with an answer and fix, but to hear where so she feels validated. That's a big word that she brings up. And if she's bringing it up as a businesswoman, that means every person that I'm communicating with, every business person, man or woman, everyone wants to be validated And so in the business world, what's your big suggestion in this? In, like, let's say if you're a leader and you have some other leaders that are underneath you, how would you coach them to communicate better?
Well, the first thing I would look at myself, and when I was in leadership positions, I know that I cut people off too quickly. Too quickly. And the word paraphrase is something that comes to mind whenever you're in a meeting. Now, there's times when obviously you can't. If it's a safety security issue or something like that, then that's pretty cut and dry. But in most situations, if you're dealing with a person who maybe they're a little bit insubordinate, or maybe they haven't totally bought into the vision that you tried to cast. So now you have to say, well, Bill, what part of this part of the vision statement do you not understand or do you not get? And they have to be able to answer that knowing that their disagreement or their misunderstanding is safe to say. Mm-hmm. And that's just creating a culture of awareness.
Well, it's safety.
Safety.
Yeah. When we were putting together our another building on our property, I brought 3 teams together. Mm-hmm. The 3 teams were a financial board, a vision team, and a land and building team. Mm-hmm. And each of them had responsibilities, but when they came together, everybody had to be on the same page of whatever we're doing.
Right.
So let's say the land and building team came up with their solution to what kind of building we're going to use and why, and they'd come and explain that. And I had to remind them that someone from the financial board or someone from the vision team may go, what about this? And you can't be insulted by it. You have to help them because you've done all the research. Your job is to help them of why you guys have come up with this decision. And each team did that. When they listened to each other, paraphrase back, we had 100% agreement. And that's hard to get when you get teams like that, but you have to have it in a nonprofit situation. And with these different teams, you need 100% of the people jumping in on what you're doing, at least your leadership there. And if someone says, if they're not getting it, does everybody understand, or does everybody agree to this? And someone says no, they're good. They're in a safe place. Can you explain why? Yeah, I didn't really understand this. Got it. Let's explain that back again. But the tendency is, especially when you have a bunch of type A's, and there was a bunch of type A's in these meetings, that it would be more of, I'm insulted, I'm going to cut you off, and I'm not even going to listen to you. Well, luckily, this group, we had one moment when that happened, but we got ourselves together, slow to speak, quick to listen, and so we don't get angry.
Right.
And so I know in a church setting, which that was a business part of it, that's what we had to do. Mm-hmm. In your setting, because you've been in a lot of businesses, can you give an example maybe of a lack of communication?
Oh, absolutely. We were getting ready to remodel a restaurant.
Okay.
One that I was overseeing. And so we had a facilities guy, and this gentleman was excellent at his job. Still is. He works for a bigger company now. And he comes in and he has his plans.
Okay.
We know what they say about plans, right?
Yeah.
But he was married to them.
Oh.
And so, and I was probably maybe about the 5th or 6th remodel that he actually done for the company. So this is quite a few years ago. And so he comes in, we have my management team, and we have a couple of area managers, and then we have facilities. And we're sitting there, and facilities is saying, we're going to do this, 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 and this. The area managers say, wait, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah, that'd be my financial board, basically.
Right, okay. And then we're saying, wait a minute, that's not going to flow in the restaurant.
Which would be my vision team.
Right. And so it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here as the general manager, and I can't, the guy who was the facilities guy, he was also the owner's son. So, it was pretty much going to go the way he wanted. However, he was a good listener. He heard what my concerns were, and he went back through his plans, which I was shocked. I was told he doesn't do that.
That's a good leader.
And then the area managers were like, okay, well, if you think you can make this work with your profit and loss statement, it's your bonus. And so we did come together. We made some changes. At one point in time, this particular restaurant organization didn't use dishwashers. And dishwashers save so much time. I mean, I'm talking machines.
Machines,
right?
Okay.
Okay. And I knew what type would work and everything else. And the facilities guy was like, well, that'll fit right here. And I said, I know where you can get a used one, and it'll be just fine. It'll be good for 20 years. And the regional managers who had never worked with one were like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work in our operation just because of this, and this. I'm trying not to give away the operation too much.
That's okay.
But I said, no, trust me. Once again, it came back to, well, it's your hide, it's your bonus, it's, and sure enough, worked just fine. That way we could take resources instead of having one of the servers or one of the cooks back there doing dishes. Everybody could do dishes. You throw stuff in a cart, you run it through, boom, done. Mm-hmm. And there were times we brought in a dedicated dishwasher, but it just made life so much easier for everybody rather than washing everything by hand.
Right. So you guys got together, came with a solution. People listened. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, the key. When it comes to like today is my favorite day, the only way I know that because you need people, right? Mm-hmm. We need God, we need people. Right. And if we can ruin the relationships and lose people in our life if we're not listening well. Right. I know with my wife, there's been times where she's brought up something that I started kind of getting, I could feel that, the angry kind of feeling going on. Yep. And it's because I'm feeling like I'm already thinking in my head, I'm early on the 17 seconds in my head, thinking of, is she challenging? Is this, is she saying I'm not doing it right? Is she, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Instead of just listening to the whole deal, which is always the smartest way to go, listen to it all, paraphrase back. And usually I've ran with something that was never an intention in her mind.
Right.
And I've had to do that with her and others too, as far as paraphrasing back. So for us, I think that when we're talking about relationships, if we're going to stay healthy and not get angry,
right,
then you're saying, and you brought up, was have that active listening. Mm-hmm. Of the back and forth, waiting for somebody to let them speak through. I think we could do that when it comes to people that are of different faith than us. As a matter of fact, I think that's really helpful. If someone is coming from a different background, maybe no faith at all, and maybe even more of an attack mode in your mm-hmm. faith, Christians have a tendency to run from that rather than listen, and then paraphrase what you heard, and then they could get into a deeper conversation. Or politics, which right. people love to argue over, but problem is when most people aren't listening.
Right.
Why? Can you tell me why you vote a particular way? That's right. I don't want to talk about politics. I got that, but you talk about it a lot. So right. could you tell me that? Yep. And I'll listen, and I'm not going to judge anything. I'm just going to paraphrase back. That's the challenge.
Yes.
17 seconds, you're already thinking about how you can debate them. 17 seconds, you're trying to figure out, hey, I got to cut you off because I don't like what you have to say. Or I'm going to tune you out, not say anything, and pretend that I'm listening to you, but I'm really not. When you paraphrase, you have to listen because you have to be able to explain back. And by the way, I've done this where I've paraphrased back. I was completely wrong on what I paraphrased back.
Been there, done that.
With Tanya specifically, and she goes, nope, that's not what I said. I remember when we first did this. It was like 3 or 4 times I had to paraphrase back the same thing she was saying. I was paraphrasing back the wrong. It was horrible. I think I was earlier than the 17 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I also believe that after maybe 10 seconds, I was tuning out. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was a good communicator.
Yeah. Yeah, we all think that. It's really hilarious when we sit down and look at our different methods of communication and how we're trying to connect with people. And words matter.
Yes.
How you use words matter. And the old saying, what is it? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Oh my goodness, that is so wrong.
Not true.
We were raised saying that all the time, right? I'd rather you beat me with a stick than your words.
Well, and I get the idea is that you're not hurting me you're not hurting me outwardly, but inwardly.
Yes.
Yes. And the scriptures in Proverbs 18, I believe, that says that the tongue has the power of life and mm-hmm. death, mm-hmm. meaning that what we say can damage somebody. And part of what we say are nonverbals, right. The nonverbal statement. So if someone comes to me and starts talking to me, and I could listen with my eyes, right at the camera, I'm listening, trying to hear what they have to say, or I could be going like this.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Well, if I'm doing that, I'm not listening.
You're not listening. Yeah.
I've shut down, and they know I've shut down, and now we're in a battle.
Yes.
And that I forgot Tanya. I think Tanya told me this because when we were first married. It was like more than 60% of what we communicate is through our nonverbals.
Yes. That is a pretty close to accurate number. When you stop and think about it, when you're talking to somebody and they sit back and they look like they're listening and they look good, but they're probably not. When they're leaned in and they are laser focused on you, they're probably hearing every word you say.
Well, and I think the paraphrasing is a big thing that maybe, and I could try that with a couple of guys. This is a good reminder because it could help me with a couple of men I work with to be able to go, hey, I'm going to paraphrase back what you have to say. If you could do that with me, that would be good, because we both have good things to say, but we may not be. The meeting goes longer than it needs to be because we're not really hearing it. We keep on doing this, and we're chasing each other's thoughts rather than stop. I listen. I hear. Got it. Let me respond back to that after I've heard and paraphrase back to you. Yeah,
and I think the more we get into practice of doing that, then the easier it becomes. And when you have, because we all have people we deal with every day on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And when we're communicating with them, we're talking to them, and we begin to do that, then they realize, oh, he really wants to understand. She really wants to understand. And so the conversation slows down a little bit, but it's direct. And eventually you get to a point where the paraphrasing back is correct. We have a tendency to paraphrase back in words that mean something different to us than what they mean to the person who spoke them. And so we need to get on the same page. And that's hard sometimes. It's really hard. And it is a practiced skill. It's not something that's natural.
No.
Not
at all.
Yeah. And for guys, it's like, okay, especially, type A. And
I think that with us is that between the two of us, because we're a little older, we think guys, but the generations that's now coming into the teens and into the 20s, men and women are doing the same thing. Communication's horrible right now. Right. At least we had at one point women that were pretty good communicating people, but now because of the aggressiveness of both men and women, which is not a bad, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we just need to communicate both ways. And I think that if we could paraphrase, my responsibility is I got to paraphrase with my grandsons, with my daughters, with my wife, with the people of the church. If I do that, they'll start learning that tool too, and actually use that. And I think that's powerful there.
Sometimes the first time you do it, they think that, is he not listening? And so when you begin to do it with somebody you haven't really had that communication style with, and you paraphrase back to them, the best thing you can say before you start is, so let me understand what you're saying. This is what I heard. If you just start paraphrasing back, then there's until they get to know that you're trying to communicate like that, it could be a little offensive, but it's like I said, it's a learned skill. And we take those techniques and we put them into practice, and we grow our teams, we grow our family. You grow closer together with your spouse, with the rest of your family. And I think that is very, very important. Communication, so how many phone calls you get today?
Oh, I don't know.
As opposed to how many texts?
I had a lot of calls today, but texts are probably at least 2 or 3 times more texts than I get phone calls. And I'd prefer to have, depends, but I prefer the phone calls, honestly. I could talk to somebody and listen to them. Now, texts are good for the short term, but I think I know where you're going with it. So explain that to me right now before I go any further.
There's no emotion in a text. Okay, somebody texts back, you got this in all caps. Are you angry with me? No, I have fat fingers. Or something like that, or you hit the wrong emoji, or things like that. So it is one-way communication where there's no emotion, there's no physical action, or
but people
verbal.
read it. But people read into those texts.
I know.
And they get angry.
I know. They get angry at them, and you could do so much better with a phone call. And I think you're right for the short things. It's boom, this is what's, when I get the tracking number for stuff that we have coming into the church, I'll text you and say, this is when it's due. Got it. Okay. No big deal. Doesn't require a telephone conversation. Now, if I have 4 or 5 things I need to visit with you about, that's a different story.
Come in my office, whatever,
or come to the office. And so we need to be a lot more selective when we're going to text. And that's, it's technology.
which I love. I
Yeah.
love texting and being able to go, hey, can you take care of this?
Right.
Done. But if I have to go if I know there's going to be a conversation, this guy, we start going back and forth, I stop it. I usually just call because I don't want to I don't want someone reading into a text and get angry with me. Plus I could hear them out a little bit better. So I think that going back to the scripture itself where it says, quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to get angry. As you and I both heard pastors say many years, there's a reason why God created us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Right. We're supposed to hear more. I could say that I talk more than I listen. I confess it's not a healthy thing. I'm learning as I've been going through this. I'm a lot better than I was, but still the tendency, especially if I'm tired, the tendency to make decisions and just be done with it and not really hear it out is always a problem. So we could talk about that at a different time.
Yes.
But today was just basically paraphrase. 17 seconds. After that, a lot of people just tune out, right? Is that what I heard from you? It's kind of 17 seconds, tune out.
Yep. And we have to practice active listening, and that will grow our relationships. Well, David, we're out of time today.
Yep.
That went by pretty quickly.
Yep.
So this has been Today is My Favorite Day with Pastor David Towner, Sam McKeown. Live intentionally. Be very blessed, my friends. Take care.
I'm pretending I'm going on my phone.
He's pretending he's texting.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Fott. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.